Welcome to the Your Audio Solutions podcast, episode 11. I hope you guys are doing great. It's been tremendously hot here in London, but I got a tattoo last week, I believe. Yeah, it was last week, which turned out pretty awesome. Other than that, working on a show that we're getting to Edinburgh in Scotland, doing the Fringe Festival again. I was there last year doing another show. But this show is cool, and it's fun to do some sound design and music for a show. It's gonna be pretty cool to see it. We have a preview this week, and also my dad is coming this week, visiting from Sweden. But that's been my week so far. Let me know how yours have been. Just send me an email or leave a comment or whatever you want to do. Today we don't have a guest on. Instead, I'm gonna share with you the 10 tips of how to get your first paying client. So either if you're just starting out as a freelance sound engineer and you never had a paying client, this episode will help you. Or if you already have paying clients, I think this episode can be beneficial too. And the tips and techniques I share in this episode is what I did when I started out and still do. But before we get into these 10 tips, I want to let you know, like with anything you take on in life that is worth doing, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, but be patient and consistent in the work you do, and you will see results. Like going to the gym, it doesn't take a week. It takes maybe a few months. And the same with anything, and the same with this, to be honest. And any course you do in this sort of things, it takes time, but just stick with it, and you'll see results. When I started out, it also took me some time to get my first paying client. But I was still in college or university, wherever you're from. And I was doing free recordings for bands I found around London. And this eventually led people paying me for my work. And that's actually my first tip is whether you're free or you're new in town or you're just starting out doing recording and mixing or live sound, whatever, this is when you want to offer you want to offer free recordings and mixes. And the reason is, if you don't know anyone in town or you've never done this before, it will allow you to start widening your network of bands and artists you know, whilst getting better at your craft. And this is obviously essential starting out. I think that makes sense to you. And the good thing is, these clients that are your first clients can actually become your first paying clients down the road. Or if they can also be playing in another band. And if you do some great work for free, you can offer to do their other band not for free, as in they will have to pay you for your service. And this is exactly what I did when I moved to London 6 years ago. So without much experience, I had to do things for free. And eventually, as I said, this paid off and clients will start paying for my service. And if you're not sure where to look for bands or where to go to see these bands, which venues or clubs to go to, just Google any genre you're interested in and the name of your town. I believe I found my first band by just scanning SoundCloud, and I found a cool jazz instrumental funk band. Went out to see them, talked to them afterwards. Nervous as hell, obviously, but went up to talk to them, said, "Hey, I'm studying audio engineering at this school. Do you want to come and do a free recording?" They did. The drummer actually played in another band who I also recorded for free. Then the bass player in that band was connected to a well-known producer in town who I then got to work for, getting paid, So you never know what these things can take you. And the good thing is, since you're starting out, this is your first step. Growing your network is more important than getting paid at first. So that's tip number 1. Do free recordings, free mixing, and you can see some cool things happening. Tip number 2, shadowing. You might have heard about shadowing before, but shadowing people who are already in the industry can be such a powerful way of, 1, getting your foot in the door, and 2, get offered paid work down the line. For example, I have shadowed people, mostly front of house engineers for live shows. But when he can make it for a show, who do you think he will recommend? You, of course. This doesn't have to be complicated. If you know someone who works in a recording studio or venue or label, wherever you want to work, ask him or her if you can shadow shadow them for a day. Don't say, hey, can I shadow you because I want to work for you? Just show your interest in their work and make it all about them. Tell them that it will be a great learning experience for you to see them work and do what they do best. Just help out wherever you can. Don't disturb them. Just be looking over the shoulder. Be a fly on the wall. If it all goes well, by the end of the day, ask him if he can come back. This is a great way of getting into the industry and something I have done and has paid off big time. Number 3, don't ask for a job. So this is technique I talk about in the free guide, 3 tested ways to increase your client base. And it's something I refer to as the coffee technique. You can find the link so you can download this guide in the description below. But rather than emailing every recording studio begging for a job, it's much more effective to ask the person you want to work for out for a coffee. It's similar to shadowing, but rather than shadowing them, ask them out for a coffee or a drink. And tell them that you wanted to ask them about their work and their expertise in that line of work. This is something I did when I wanted to get into a recording studio. And this is actually how I got into my first recording studio. I didn't ask, hey, can I work for you? I'd love to be a runner, assistant, whatever. I just say, hey, I want to take you out for a drink or a coffee and ask you about your line of work and how it is to, have a recording studio, something like that. It turned out we actually never got to the coffee. We had a few conversations. He asked me how I was doing. I was still in college. But he said, come this day, be a runner at that session, whatever. And that turned out to be a great experience because I stayed in that studio for quite a while, became an assistant, got paid. I actually started playing in one of the function bands the same guy ran on the side. So you never know what this can lead to either. So tip number 4, build up a portfolio. This might make sense, but going back to the first tip, after having done all these free recordings for the bands and mixes, use them in a portfolio. A simple SoundCloud playlist will actually do fine. You don't have to have a fancy website or anything when you start out, but having something for them to listen to is awesome. You need that, so they can hear what you can do. And this will allow you to reach out to new clients online, for example, and show them what you can deliver. If they like it and they're in the process of making a record or need a mixing, you have a good chance of getting to work with them and charge them for your service. So get a portfolio if you don't already have one. And 5, study. And obviously I don't mean go to an audio school because you're already maybe in one or you just finished one and you don't want to think about going back to fucking school. But what I'm talking about here is actually start learning about business and start learning about how to add value to people, and in this case bands and artists, so they want to work with you. So if you're a producer or an engineer, start thinking, what does my client want? What's the problem I can solve for them? And also, just learn about how to run a studio. There's some great resources which you can check out right now that are not mine, and those are the 6-Figure Home Studio podcast. Great podcast for learning more about how to run a studio, doing ads and all that. Check that podcast out, it's awesome. And also the Graham Cochran show. Also, it's more business in general, but also a great way, or he shares some great tips of how to run a business. And the sooner you can learn about business, the better off you'll be. it might not interest you at all because you're musician, producer, engineer, all you want to do is mix, but chances are at some point in your career you will have to learn about this, and it's a different skill, takes time to learn. It doesn't have to be a full-time thing, but just start learning about it on the side. A few hours every week can do good things. And this can also include learning how to charge properly for your service. I wrote about this a few months ago. There's an article on the site you can look for how to charge based on value rather than time. All this stuff is based on me learning more about business in general. So that's a great way. Don't discredit learning about business. Check out those podcasts. Check out the articles on my site. There's some great value in that. I'm just going to put this in there. If I sound a bit exhausted, it's because I just started doing these kettlebell exercises. It's been a few weeks. They're awesome to do. You can do it at home, but damn, they're hard. So even though I finished it an hour ago, I've eaten, I'm still exhausted. So if my breathing is a bit heavy, that's why. So excuse me for that. But let's continue on. So tip number 6, lead magnet. If you have a website and you have a killer portfolio, but no one is hiring you, maybe they forgot about your studio or wasn't looking to record anything at the time they came across your website, try to get people on your email list through a lead magnet. This way you can stay on top of people's mind, as in the bands and the artists that comes to your website and sign up to your email list because you offer something free and awesome, like something that bands need and want. I don't know, some issue they always come across, like, oh, I can never get the good vocal sound in my bedroom. Give them a free guide explaining how to get the best vocal sound, in their bedroom. And this way they sign up to your email list. You can keep adding value to them, some valuable things throughout, once a week, once a month, whatever you want to do. And when they're ready to start recording or get their album mixed, they will probably remember you because you have been on top of their mind. So lead magnet, tip number 6. Tip number 7, build meaningful relationships. This does tie back to tip number 1 and 3. However, building meaningful relationships with people in the industry is really important. This is something that also will pay off down the line. It might not be after a first meeting, you meet someone, they're going to pay you for a project. It will take time, but it might pay off big time, as in it will be a repeated client. And you might need to continuously go out and see bands or meet people at events, take people out for coffee, as I told you before, and slowly build that relationships. And this is what I did. Again, going back to when I started out, there was one guy particularly who's become a great friend. I think I talk about this guy a lot. His name is Maxime. He's an awesome producer. He's a great friend now. But it started out me going to the gigs, talking to him, going to see him, hanging out. And we have worked on several stuff. My own stuff, his stuff, bands that hire him as a producer, and then he gets me on board as an engineer. That has happened because it was a relationship that grew over time. But something that you have to put yourself out there first at the beginning. So I can't recommend that enough. That's a great way of getting paid work. Number 8, and this might seem obvious, but you can also apply for projects and jobs online. There are some sites that are specifically for the music business, but one that I recommend is musicjobs.com. They have jobs for the US, Brazilian, Latin American, the UK, and the Italian market. You have to pay to be a member, but there are some cool opportunities posted there, and I have actually got a few jobs from that site. So check that out, musicjobs.com. Tip number 9, use SoundBetter, Fiverr, or Upwork. So rather than applying for jobs as through Music Jobs or whatever, you can sign up to these sites and have people find you instead. So that's sites where artists can go to look for people to work for, etc. Some people might wonder if it's worth joining these sites, and this is something I wrote an article about not too long ago. You can check that out on the site too. I tried one of these sites, I think it was Fiverr or Upwork. It didn't really work for me, but I know people who are on SoundBetter and they make a living mixing people's work there. So I'm not going to say it's not possible. For me, it wasn't for me, but you can check my article on that also on youraudiosolutions.com, where I wrote more about this and other people's experience. So check that one out. Tip number 10. This is not my personal tip, but it's something I heard from the 6-Figure Home Studio podcast, and it ties in with having a lead magnet. So it's running Facebook ads. I think this is a great way, and it shouldn't be discredited because it's ads. So if you have a great website and a great portfolio, and you need a Facebook pixel installed, which you can do really easily, just Google how to install Facebook pixel. This allows you to track people who visits your website. So for example, if you have a shitloads of artists and bands coming to see your website because of somehow they found your website, but they weren't looking for any producer, engineer at that time, by you be able to track them coming to your website, you can then start showing ads to them on Facebook. And this doesn't have to be expensive at all. But again, as with the email list, but using money, you can stay present in their mind. So by continuously showing these people ads from your studio or some other valuable things to them, it allows you to stay present in their mind. So when they are ready to record or get their album mixed, chances are you are going to pop up in their head. So that's a pretty powerful technique and something you should check out. So run Facebook ads. Tip 11, which is not really a tip, but is an important factor in all this, and that's patience. And the reason I want to mention this as its own point is that you can do all of these techniques and tips, but without patience, you might quit before you get to see the reward. So this is something I noticed listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of things, reading a lot of books about this, is you can get all the tips and techniques you need and you can apply them, but you might see zero return because you just did it once. And I want to stress that it takes time and consistency. That's probably the most important thing. You can't just do one email to your email list. It has to be consistently once a week for a year maybe before you get a client coming back to you, but that's what it takes in the beginning, to do it consistently and have patience. Put in the work, do it smart, be organized, and you can probably do it once a week. Then the rest of the week you can spend mixing and doing whatever you like, but patience is hugely important. So stay with it, be patient, and it will pay off. That's it for today or this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment and a rating if you're listening to this episode on Apple Podcast, or leave a comment if it's on YouTube. And I'm going to see you guys next week again. Have a great interview coming to you then. But for now, enjoy your week and see you soon.